Hello, this is wmpyr. Just finished doing a video with Sensei Emmett, and I got to give a real big shout out and thanks to Mr. Kid Crowder. He's the one that made this happen. So Sensei Emmett, he has a YouTube channel where he's just interviewing a whole bunch of martial arts personalities, and I think that is very commendable. Where he's like bringing them all together onto his YouTube channel and. Uh, putting the spotlight on these people that he's interviewing. So that's very selfless and an awesome thing that he is doing. Anyway, Sensei Emmett asked me because of Mr. Kid Crowder to do an interview. And I said to the guy, you know what, I'm nobody famous, and my info, you can find it on my website. So why don't we do something more interesting? Why don't we talk about cross-training, because everyone's doing it right now. Also, why don't we talk about Frankenstein Martial Arts? And what that is where you go from style to style and you're cherry-picking things that you like to make your own perfect style. Like you're going to put all that stuff together and make your own Frankenstein martial arts. So I was like, why don't we talk about that? Because I know you've done it, and I know I've done it. So let's talk about that kind of stuff. And he said, sure. And he was all cool about it. And we started the video pretty much like right there. It was like, hey, how's it going? Okay. And then pretty much got right into. He started recording. So I just met the guy, all right? He doesn't know me, I don't know him. So for that, I think we did really, really well. For not having never met and being on two opposite parts of the world, I thought it was pretty good. So please check it out. It will premiere on his YouTube channel on Thursday. I thought we talked about some really cool things. He kind of started to interview me. Like he started off and I was like, wait a minute, I thought this was going to be a discussion. We were going to talk about it, but it was kind of turning into like a normal interview where and I didn't want it to be like, okay, I'm just going to talk about me. So I started asking him questions, and I didn't mean to like make it like I'm taking over as host, but I wanted it to be a discussion, and I think it became that, where we are sharing our stories, our experiences. I think we actually do that. And so he's telling me about his cool experiences, and I'm trying to tell him about my stories and stuff that hopefully people will find interesting about, once again, cross-training and all that. So yeah, definitely I came from pretty much since day one, cross-training was huge. And I knew right away. I mean, I started in junior high. This is the 90s. So the 90s is, you have Van Damme, you have Steven Seagal, and then you had like Jeff Speakman, Chuck Norris, of course Bruce Lee, the classics. But then you also had like Don the Dragon Wilson, Olivier Grunner, Billy Blanks. So all these people from different martial arts background, different styles and stuff. And I was pretty much like, I want to do that. I don't want to just be one style. I want to do that. I mean, we're talking about Bloodsport and Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. Those were the games. Bloodsport was the movie, but those were the games. And what made the movie Bloodsport interesting, the tournament, is all the different styles. What makes those video games interesting is all the different characters, because they all have different styles, once again. So I knew 100% that's what I'm going to do. And rather than being one style, I'm going to be like, okay, the kicks, the high kicks from Taekwondo, the shin kicks from Muay Thai kickboxing, the throws from Judo, the double leg takedown, single leg takedown from wrestling, the leg locks from Sambo, some of the exotic submission holds from catch wrestling, and then BJJ was kind of like my base for grappling. For weapons, definitely 100% Filipino martial arts was my main bread and butter. I did do a tiny bit of nunchucks. Just, that was more because of Bruce Lee influence and for fun. And I did do a little bit of jo work. So that's the staff, and that's because you see it in Aikido, you see it in Karate, you see it in ninjutsu, and you see it in Korean art. So the jo just seemed like a logical weapon. So I did a tiny bit of jo. But yeah, it was the double sticks, single sticks, bladed weapons. It was Filipino martial arts all the way for me for weapon wise. But yeah, if I had to pick another weapon that I'm very, very interested in, I'd have to say in ninjutsu, there's the Kusari Fundo. I find that absolutely fascinating. To me, it's the coolest weapon in ninjutsu is the Kusari Fundo, which is the chain, the weighted chain. And I'm sure there's all kinds of different versions of it, but the one that I like is not super long. And you could easily just hold it in one hand and conceal it, and then you could just throw it in someone's face if you had to, or you could, spread out the chain and use it like so. And yeah, it shouldn't be super, super long. At the most, it would be kind of like, I'm thinking like a eskrima stick length. So nothing that's mega long and you're not like the Chinese rope darts, which those look mega cool, but they also look incredibly difficult. So yeah, just looking at the rope dart, I go, awesome, not for me. But yeah, the Kusari Fundo is just, to me, that's like all the way. That is awesome. Other than the Filipino, the sticks and the blades. So that's weapon wise. Empty hand wise, I liked Muay Thai kickboxing for sure. And then I did a tiny bit of Muay Thai, but a tiny bit of Savat. And I really liked the street aspect. So there was a sport Savat and a street Savat, kind of like Sambo. There's a sport Sambo and a military command. In Japan, it's called a Commando Sambo, which is the combat Sambo, right? And then a tiny bit also of boxing, Western boxing. So, but one of my interests there, out of all, because those are all basically boxing, kickboxing, right? So Muay Thai, Savat, and then you have Western boxing. Well, one more that I'd like to add there that a lot of people kind of forget is the American kickboxing. And, just talking to Sensei Emmett, I believe over there in Europe, in the UK, Ireland, over there, they had their own kickboxing. But, and today, he said that today is Muay Thai, pretty much. But back in the day, like 80s, 90s, I'm thinking that it was probably very similar to the U.S., where in the U.S., you had these military people that came back from Asia, and whether it was Taekwondo or Karate, they did the point fighting over here in the U.S., and that they wanted something that was more full contact, so that changed to American kickboxing. And so that's the PKA, Professional Karate Association, that sport, that tournament. So you see guys like that. And then that turned into full-blown kickboxing, where they started fighting with the Muay Thai fighters and becoming more and more like Muay Thai. But that way of fighting, where it was pretty much like, I think it was like you had to throw like 8 kicks, and then it was like boxing combined with the kicks from the Asian martial arts kind of. I think that is very valuable in itself, and it's different from Muay Thai kickboxing. So you can't just look at it and say Muay Thai kickboxing is superior, it's better. No, it's different. So I think there's a lot of benefit in that style of fighting as well. And so I kind of, to this day, I try to practice that, where I'm throwing actually side kicks and spinning back kicks, spinning back fists, and doing that style of fighting where you're standing more sideways and fighting that way. But I also, of course, for me, the Muay Thai was something that I had done for much longer and much more comfortable with. But yeah, so that would be more the empty hand stand-up fighting wise. But there's one more I gotta mention, and that is the Kundo method of fighting, and that I really really liked because it kind of put in the American kickboxing, or pre-American kickboxing, when it was still point fighting but starting to become more and more like kickboxing, whereas semi to full contact point fighting. Okay, so that style combined with street elements, where now you are doing eye jabs and you are kicking the guy in the knee. You are doing savate style kicks, roundhouses with the pointed toe into the guy's groin. So that, what Bruce Lee brought in, that street element, I really, really like that as well. And so that was a big interest. And then I saw, in college, I saw the Paul Vunak Jeet Kune Do videos with the trapping, where I had never seen trapping done like that ever, where it was headbutts, elbows, and knees combined with the compound trapping. So that was also extremely fascinating. And I knew I had to figure that out so that I could use that in full contact, because I was having challenge matches. And I wanted to, because in Filipino martial arts, we have something similar with trapping and checking and slapping hands. And I was definitely like, I don't want to just learn this stuff and can't use it. So I need to figure this out. And that was, to me, there was a very strong connection between Filipino martial arts and JKD there. So that was a big, long obsession for me as well. And then, of course, there's the more traditional styles, the traditional styles of karate, and something like Aikido and even ninjutsu. And now we're maybe going more into the area of books like Miyamoto Musashi's The Book of Five Rings and The Art of War. Those were all fantastic as far as like philosophy and mindset, because I always believe the mind definitely is the strongest weapon. So I want the mind to be sharp, without a doubt. So at the end of the day, that was also fascinating as well. So anyway, that's kind of the way that I cherry picked. And so please check out Sensei Emmett's YouTube channel. I'll put a link down below. And that's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.